Hello, welcome back if you're a returning viewer. Today I want to do another art critique. I had a lot of fun with the last one and I figured it'll be a great thing to do again. Instead of going to Etsy and doing the whole looking at expensive Etsy listings again, I want to look towards the land of Reddit, specifically the subreddit r/delusionalartists. This subreddit, at its core, is art that is priced extremely high, but is not either at the quality or complexity or at that price point for whatever reason, or that there's no reason it should be priced that high. And I already looked at them, I picked 5 different posts, each completely different from the last, to critique, talk about, give constructive criticism, and maybe poke a little fun. It's all in good fun though. So, real quick, let's get into it. Before we get into it, sorry about interrupting myself, I'd like to do a quick disclaimer. Don't send hate to the artists of any of these products. This is supposed to be all in good fun to really reflect on different art skills. If you happen to be the creator of these art pieces, I have nothing against you, nothing against your art. This is just a fun, silly video. And if you disagree with my opinions, completely fine as well. There is a million different ways to interpret artwork. This is just my opinion and what I would do differently with these particular pieces. All right, for real this time, let's get into it. Alright, so I've got the first Reddit post. Let me adjust real quick. I've got the first Reddit post pulled up, and let's pull up the image. This one looks like it is a Facebook listing, bottle art $50. Now, this literally is a smashed liquor bottle, which is interesting all on its own. I will give you that. I love when art pieces use a natural approach, like how, I don't know how to phrase this, but how the medium naturally acts. This piece looks like they got one of those weird stretchy picture frames that can hold any object, broke a bottle into it and closed it, which probably didn't take a ton of effort into making, in all honesty, but the concept I like. Personally, if I were to do this differently, I would see if there was a way to cast it in resin or some kind of similar material rather than just seal it in a frame. And one of my other concerns is it looks like if you look at it, it looks like the liquor is in the frame. If it's actually the liquor and like the contents of the bottle, that's not going to age well. So I personally would change the frame, encase it in some kind of resin, and what they can do is they could use that medium to make it look like the liquid from the inside of the bottle instead of the actual liquid, so it ages better. But I mean, it's an interesting piece, and it looks like this is looking at the image of the post from the internet. It's brand new wall art or bar art. I can see this going in someone's man cave or somewhere like that. I can see it. And they said you can choose the liquor bottle, so this is probably a commissionable piece that you commission the artist. Something tells me that this is just a bottle they sealed in plastic and broke. Interesting concept, but I think they could execute it a little better. And maybe depends on how expensive the liquor is, because if it was sealed in resin, the $50 price tag I think would be reasonable. Resin can be tough to work with, but if it is just in a plastic frame, it's not worth $50. That's my personal opinion. So overall, interesting piece. All right, next one. Now, this one I chose because it was very fascinating. So this looks like something a sad beige mom would put into a nursery. It looks kind of like something you'd get from HomeSense or Home Goods or TJ Maxx, like something. It looks very plain, and that's not a bad thing. And if it's hand carved, that is really cool. And I can see somebody selling hand carved little cars for decoration. But here's where the delusional artists come from: the price point. $4,874 to $5,646. I personally do not believe the craftsmanship here would warrant that price tag. I can see this particular piece fitting quite nicely in someone's home. This is something that is stylized. If it's hand carved wood, so there's appeal to it. But I don't think anybody's going to pay that price tag for this. Now, it says oak color, shown in oak color. It doesn't specify the wood type. If it's a more expensive wood, then of course that'll drive the price up. If this kind of looks hand carved, but it also kind of looks something that could have been done in a factory setting, industrial. So it's very plain. And honestly, I just can't wrap my head around this particular one. It is very plain and basic, and I can see something like this being sold for $30 or $40. But as far as art goes, or the artistic part of this, I think the point is to display books in it. So the real art will come from what you store inside of it or where you store it. But I mean, it's just a blocky car carved from wood. It's very simple. I do like that it's not perfectly geometric. Like, the image looks kind of like it's been hand carved. The lines aren't perfectly straight, which does add to the character. I think if they lowered the price point and leaned into the hand carved look and really let imperfections show, and let the wood grain dictate how the form of the card was, I think you'd have a lot more interesting piece. I understand, I don't know if this is minimalism or brutalist. I'm gonna lean towards minimalism, but it's okay to let the materials properties affect the art's imperfection, and they get it on the wheels of this vehicle. They look like they're hand cast little wheels. So if they took that rustic, hand done, unique trait to the rest of the car, I think it would be a pretty interesting piece. Not necessarily $5,000 unique, but it would be a lot more interesting visually and decoratively. All right, so this next one I chose because this has multiple images, so we'll critique each of the ones. These I picked because they look like they were generated by AI. If you look at this, the contrast, one thing that always signals to me that something is AI is the images have bright saturated colors and extreme contrast, and the shading looks almost perfect. The shading looks too clean. I don't know, that tells me it's AI. And another thing that tells me it's AI is it looks like on one half of the lightning bolt is the back of the creature, and then the other half is the front. But the back and the front don't line up. Like, there's a tail generating out of its foot. The spikes don't line up with the back of the head. So the anatomy here and the right arm kind of melds into the tail. So the anatomy here is kind of wacky, which tells me this is an AI image. And I personally think, my opinion, I think AI is great for getting proofs of concept, or for people just looking for ideas, or just seeing what AI cooks up for you as laughs. But selling AI art, I completely disagree with. One, they're trained off of other artists' work, and they don't necessarily consent to their art being used to train an AI. And number two, it wasn't created by a person. Now, in the future, when we have a machine that can think, feel, and has the agency of a person, then we can talk about copywriting, intellectual property of AI art. But this, I would not sell it, I would not buy it. That is my personal opinion on AI. So let's look at the other ones. This one, it looks a little better. It looks like the tail is coming a little too low. And if you, again, one of the telltale signs that something is AI generated is the hands. It looks like it has two hands kind of karate chopping together, kind of like a chameleon, but there's toes coming out of it. And then the other hand has 3 fingers and looks fairly flat and static. And then, I mean, it looks like the shading and the fire is very artistic and fits, but the anatomy of the creature doesn't make logical sense, which is one of the hallmarks of AI. The AI struggles with anatomy. I mean, it is a cool looking piece. I will give them that. But I don't know if it's $300, especially since this screams AI art. All right, there's 2 more in this post. This one, if this was hand painted, that'd be really cool. And this one, the anatomy makes a little more sense. It looks like it has a very stocky build in the leg. Like, looks like it's too far forward. It should probably be shifted back. I am not an anatomy expert, and it's a monster that, if this was done by a person, would have been made up completely. So in that case, you can really do whatever you want with the anatomy, as long as it makes logical sense with how the creature flows and moves. And these pieces, it feels like there's a lot going on, but there's not too much that really catches your eye at first. It kind of is just one central mess of nonsense creating a monster, which can be visually interesting if done correctly, but it feels like there's just too much going on with the monster itself to really make sense. Honestly, the lightning and the fire and then the exploding fragments is just too much. I would probably cut back the lightning and maybe lessen the exploding fragments to bigger chunks, and then do some of the fire coming up, but not around the whole monster. That would draw the attention to the creature itself, and really, in my opinion, make the art more cohesive and less muddled with detail. But again, this screams AI. If it is not AI, you have great talent and you are definitely have potential. You just work on your anatomy a little bit. And the last one, this one's titled Art, and the legs look pretty decent, but the arm, one arm is shown way far back behind the head, which for the pose doesn't make a ton of sense. And the other arm, it looks like the hand is coming straight out of a fragment, And then it has the same lightning, fire, and fragments issues, which this one is less impactful as the previous piece was. It's not as muddled. It feels like the fire, the fragments, and the lightning are more segmented, which draws more attention to the monster. But there are some blaring issues with the anatomy. The head seems too close to the body and maybe a little small. I would give it a strong, powerful neck. I would make sure the arms look like they're supposed to be where they're supposed to be. And maybe instead of the legs looking like it's supposed to be just sitting in a neutral position, make them look like they're extended, like it's leaping into the air, since it looks like it's in the air. Make the pose fit the background, essentially. I still, in my heart of hearts, believe these were AI generated, and I'm not 100% on board with selling AI art. I do not believe you should be selling art unless you are saying, this is from this artist and I'm reselling it, or you made it yourself. Because if you're not reselling the art, or you didn't make it yourself, I don't think you have the right to sell it. And I know some people will be upset, but typing a prompt into a generator does take skill. You need to know exactly what to ask the software to get the image you want. But unfortunately, you didn't come up with the image, you didn't do the composition, you didn't do the shading, you didn't come up with anything yourself. You just said, I want a picture of a T-Rex exploding, and that's what you get. And the title's here. We have to revel in the title of this, called Art. If this was a hand-painted, actually done by a person, I can see $50 being a reasonable price. But the problems with the anatomy and the overall composition, it screams AI, and most people are not going to want to display AI generated art in their home for $50. So I had a lot to say on this one, but I figured bring a little variety into our selection today. And now this one, Bigfoot lady carving. This one I chose because I think this piece is honestly hilarious. This is honestly something, if I saw this at a craft show for a reasonable price, there's a good chance it's coming home with me. Like, it is something. It's very something. It's hilarious. The face screams, I don't know how to say this, but it just screams classic American tourist trap. Like something you would find on the side of a highway in the middle of Texas. And I kinda am here for that. Classic Americana right there. And it is carved from what looks like a big piece of wood, a big log. I've seen similar stuff at craft shows. In fact, my stepmom has a couple black bears that are carved in the same style. They're just simple black bears carved and stained to put out in your yard, and she takes good care of hers. She covers it in sealant every year, and they're really cute. This one, I can see having a higher price point than the simple bear design, because there is a lot more detail. The face, is it stained? It's kind of hard to tell. It looks stained, or it looks partially stained, partially painted. And I like how the fur was textured by staining it with, staining it, and then they carved it to give it that variety of texture and really make those cuts pop. This definitely took some skill and took a lot of energy and time to make. Where I think this belongs in delusional artists is the price point. It might be a tad high. I can see maybe $100, $150 for this, depending on the size. based on the image, it looks like it's maybe 2 or 3 feet tall, so I can see $150, $200 if it's bigger. Now, if this is something that's like 5 feet tall, like my size, the price point, that makes sense. But based on the image and the scale of the image, it doesn't look like it's that big. Honestly, this is a really funny piece. The texture is good. The proportions of the hands feel a tiny bit off. I can't even draw hands, so I can't imagine carving hands out of wood with like a chainsaw or a stump, or out of a stump. I assume a chainsaw was used for this. There's probably other tools too, but it looks like the legs are a little disproportionate too. Definitely the proportions, I think, could be improved, but overall this piece is funny, and if they made these and took them to the craft show for the right price, people would buy them. People would love them. The only reason I think this fits in this I don't even think this really fits in the subreddit. If the price was more reasonable, I don't even think it would be here. And honestly, I think it's kind of funny. That's why I picked it. It is just a silly Sasquatch. You know, perfect for some dude's front patio, and people will go, what the heck is that there for? And be like, that's my lady Sasquatch. So, honestly, I picked that one because it's funny. I like it. Just the price point is the big contender here. So, on to the final one. Last but definitely not least. This one is an Instagram artist, hand-drawn original portrait, personality portrait. So these are hand-drawn or hand-painted portraits. And the style, I like this style with the kind of stylized. I can get behind this. Somebody putting it in their eclectic art collection in their house. I can see the style. I can see what they're going for, the caricaturized, unique. But $120, you can see what looks like they were using. They need to work on their consistency. A lot of the crayon lines and line thickness is variety. I'll zoom in on different ones. Can I do that? Doesn't look like it, but we'll zoom into each of these little four corners. The first one, the body proportions, looks way off. The way she did the dress makes it look like it is super short, like it's a shirt, and then her legs are shooting out the bottom. Hands, you can do stylized hands if you work on if this person worked on their hands a little bit. That is good. And maybe if they worked on, since the personality portrait has details about someone's personality, I assume, I think it would be more interesting if they made it more like a collage surrounding the person, gave something interesting or something that steers the eyes in a certain way around the person. That would be more interesting instead of just a bunch of random objects on a white background. That would be where I would go with that. And I would have them, the necks seem very long on these. I'm going to say that out, but that is not necessarily a bad thing. If that's the style they're going for, where it's a stylized portrait, and they want to have like simple hands, long necks, that particular shaped head, that's completely fine. You can draw in whatever style you want. But I think there is some room for improvement. Like the eyes and eyelashes seem a little too inconsistent from piece to piece. Looking at the next one over top, which for editing page, it'll be the top right. This one is pretty good. The hair, I think they should draw it because it looks like just two things of hair on the side of the head. You need to have the hair go back. My hair's a terrible example, but hair goes all around your head. So don't just have it on the sides. it'll make a huge difference. The eyelashes, the thick eyelashes aren't bad. I kind of like it, but I think they need to be a little more consistent. And then the hand, I think this portrait is supposed to be holding a wine glass. I would do a case study and just draw hands interacting with a bunch of different stuff, holding different objects, and really just learn how they bend, even if it's stylized. Learn how the hands in your style will work. And I know I'm preaching, it's the pot calling the kettle black. I can't draw hands to save my life. I usually draw them like mittens when I draw characters, but just like figure out how it works their style, and that'll go a long way. The stripes on the shirt. This could be part of the style, but I don't think it was. It looks like they just took a single line and went straight across the whole shirt. The lines on a shirt are not going to line up perfectly like that. They are going to curve around the curvature of a body. Like they're going to bend and look warped based on how the person's body curves and contours. So you want to make sure the lines aren't just straight horizontal. You want to make sure they look like they, look like they're on an actual thing and not just wallpaper cut out in the shape of a torso. And then I can't see the bottom two names, but we can zoom into those. The next one, two people, similar issues. These two, it looks like the shading was rushed, and it looks like this particular artist has a very heavy hand when applying. If this is pencil, definitely. If this is marker, their marker might be dying. But same issue with the eyelashes, same issue with the hair, and same issues with the hands. I think this style can go a long way. They just need more practice. And the prices for these, $285, $120. What I would recommend this artist do is I would recommend they go and they say, hey, I want to do commissions. If they want to have money coming in from it, price them at $1 and say, for $1, I'll draw a commission for you. Or even say, next 50 people to message me are getting a free commission to get practice, to really develop and grow. And one thing I kind of want to do this is just go sit in a public place and people watch. See what interesting people you see, and then leave, go back home and try to draw those interesting people from memory. It'll be a nice challenge, and it might help really develop those drawings of people. I know I want to start drawing more people, and drawing them stylized is going to be the only way I draw them good. Every time I try to draw a realistic person, it looks like a police sketch and not a good one. All right, the last one, the hair looks good, and it looks like it's kind of hard to see. It's kind of small. I'm going to zoom in, so hopefully the quality is okay, but I can't promise anything. Hair looks okay. It looks like a short bob, and the eyelashes, same issue. It's not really consistent, and it varies wildly. And then the hand, it looks like the baguette she's holding is floating behind her hand. So really working on hands is going to be key to improving the style. And I think just practice and development is going to go a long way. Let's look at the next set of images. Oh, this is just the one we were talking about before. And the arm, we'll talk about this one a little more. So this one, you can really see the texture, $210, commission for 2. The hands, the objects they're holding, it looks like they're just floating there and psychically levitating them. And the way the joints bend, I would recommend for anybody drawing characters, and I'm going to work on this too myself as I improve, to draw not actual characters with detail, but just draw like generic, those little dolls that you can pose and use as a reference. Just draw those guys. Just draw a bunch of those guys in different poses. Or just draw very plain generic things to really work. How does an arm bend? And then go, okay, an arm bends like this. How will that work in my style? There is always room to improve, and I highly recommend looking at reference photos and trying to think, how will this work in my style? There's a million ways to draw, and there's no wrong way to draw. I will tell you that. This one I chose because the prices don't match the quality. I think if they work on that style and really get the quality up, get the composition up, the color, add some shading, and really lean into it, I think maybe they can get to the point where they can sell commissioned for a high price point. But at most, for portraits like these, I would probably only recommend like $30 for a bust, and then like the one with all the details in it, maybe $80 for that one. Offer a colored and non-colored version. Like, there are options. And this style, I think, would be really good if they did it digitally. They'd be able to texture more consistently, and they'll be able to shade, and if you make a mistake, it's easier to erase. Especially if you're heavy-handed, it might make a difference doing it digitally. But yeah, I just thought this was an interesting thing to talk about, and I could talk all day about art. So I'm gonna call it here with these 5. All right, if you made it this far, thank you so much for watching. Do the thing, like, subscribe, comment. Hopefully there was value here. I like looking at other art and seeing what can be improved, and seeing how it relates to my art and how I can improve myself. And hopefully you enjoyed my silly little opinions. I am a very inexperienced artist. I did not go to art school, so I just wanted to give my novice opinion. I love this subreddit, and most people who cover it just laugh at the images and go, this is not good. I figured, take a different spin on things, give constructive criticism, and hopefully we can all learn and grow as artists. And until next time, have a good one. That was a bit passive-aggressive, it feels, but have a good one. Can't say that without sounding passive-aggressive. All right, I'm just gonna call it here.